SimCity 4. Developed by Maxis and published by Electronic Arts in the beginning of 2003, it later saw its first and only expansion, SimCity 4 Rush Hour, in September of that same year, which added new road types and buildings as well as a new city driving mode from the isometric perspective. You can find both of these games bundled together in the SimCity 4 Deluxe Edition, available on CD and DVD-ROM, as well as digitally on Steam, GOG, and EA's Origin, if that's your thing. When you open the game, you get the usual style of animated intro from that era, and are immediately brought to the region screen. Regions in this game are huge plots of land that contain predetermined spaces for cities. You have a few pre-built regions to choose from, or if you're feeling incredibly creative, you can create your own. If creating your own region is what you're aiming to do, then you have a multitude of tools to work with for editing the land. The downside here is in order to create a region from scratch, you will need to edit each city plot individually. So be prepared to create a plot of land, save and exit back to the region map, and then load up another plot next to it. This pain is alleviated, however minutely, by a reconcile tool that will check the edges of the currently loaded city and match them to the edges of its neighbors. Finally, before we get into the main part of the game, it is possible to create a custom region layout in case the randomly generated regions just aren't suiting your fancy. When entering a city for the first time, you are placed in God mode, where you are given tools to shape the land to suit your needs. These tools appear on a bar going up the left side of your screen. On there, you have tools to create mountains, valleys, canyons, smooth hills, sharp mesas, and even cliffs overlooking the ocean. You also have the power to plant vast forests and seed the land with animals. After you have created a plot of land to suit your needs, you can found your new city. When founding your city, you get to name it as well as your mayor, and set the difficulty, which controls starting money and debt, as well as how easily your city will grow. It's important to note that once the city is founded, you will lose access to the God mode tools, so make sure that the land is terraformed the way you would prefer it, as editing terrain in mayor mode is tedious and expensive. Once you become the mayor of a simulated city, the real game begins. If you didn't notice it in God mode, hopefully now you will notice that by your minimap are simulation speed buttons, which you may want to click pause on before you continue building your city. Also, you will notice that the toolbar on the left side of the screen has changed to reflect mayor mode. So, first things first, when building a city, you will need roads, and good road design will be imperative for a successful city. So experiment until you find a layout that works for your city while suiting your style. Once your roads are in place, you can begin building buildings. The second thing to consider will be your utilities. You will need power and water in order to begin developing your city. There are many options for power right off the bat, including wind, coal, oil, natural gas, and heart. Go planet. Seriously though, it is important to consider where these are placed, as certain zones will be affected differently depending on pollution factors. For instance, since pollution lowers land value and negatively affects Sims' health, it is generally a poor idea to place a heavily polluting coal power plant next to residential or commercial zones, as well as next to or even near a water pumping station, as the pollution can eventually force the building offline. The same is true when placing water pumps and water towers, as placing them too close to an area of heavy pollution will cause them to pump polluted water to your city, and eventually cause them to be shut down. Speaking of water pumps, after placing them you will need to place pipes so that the water can make it to your citizens. Finally, for the meat of the city building, you have the three basic zone types: residential, commercial, and industrial. What's new in SimCity 4, however, is the addition of a middle-level zone density and the replacement of the low-level industrial zone with agricultural land zone. Residential and commercial zones are also now set up in lots when placed, so each building has its own access to and is correctly oriented towards the street. Finally, you will need to place a zone for landfill, otherwise your Sims will have no way to get rid of garbage. Once everything is in place, you can unpause the simulation, if you had it paused that is, and watch as your random jumble of utilities, roads, and colors come to life to form a small town. As you continue playing, your city will undoubtedly expand vertically and horizontally as you work to perfect it. As your city grows and you achieve more in population and other specific requirements, you will gain access to more advanced utility and civic buildings that can be used to make the lives of your Sims better, and in turn, possibly make your city more profit. Another new feature in SimCity 4 is the My Sim mode, which allows you to plant a Sim into your city in any house that you want. You can use pre-built Sims, or you can import Sims from your The Sims neighborhoods for a little more customization. After placing Sims into your city, you can check with them and they will give you updates on how that section of your city is doing. They will also get a job dependent on the level of wealth of the building you place them in. As time goes on, you may find that you no longer like your city, or at least a section of it, and would like to destroy it to make way for a new and improved city section. Well, SimCity 4 has a whole selection of disasters to have some fun with, and this time they can be controlled by the player. With disasters like earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes, giant robots, fire, and more, you can level entire cities, or just a section of it at your discretion and to your satisfaction. I could go on for hours about this entry into the SimCity franchise. It was what I consider to be the last great hurrah for the series, as it took nearly 10 years for its true successor to be released, and let's face it, no one is giving an award out for how that was handled, and it probably left such a bad taste in people's mouths that many have probably switched over to one of the numerous other city management titles out there. SimCity 4, however, is still fun to go back to, and it feels like it hasn't aged half bad. The graphics are still nice, the sound effects and music are awesome, and the gameplay is solid. And on top of that, with just a minor tweak of a run line, it plays perfectly on current computers. So at the end of the day, I gotta say I recommend picking this up.